Welcome to the ADNA Presents. This is Roy Samuelson, and today we're happy to have Serena Gilbert. She is a quality control expert on some major series and other things that are going on. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Thanks for joining us, Serena, and tell us what you love about audio description.
What I love about audio description is that, and many of you who know me may have heard this before, but it equalizes the playing field. I can go to work around the proverbial water cooler and talk about, oh my gosh, did you see what happened on this show last night? It was amazing, and really have a meaningful conversation. I can sit right next to my husband. We can watch the same show without pausing and me saying what's going on as he's trying to process what's going on all at the same time. It's just amazing. And I can watch whatever shows I want without him having to watch them if he doesn't want to watch the show that I want to watch. It's just amazing.
I love how you're talking about the nuance of audio description because there's such an assumption that AD is this, okay, we're going to provide visuals for blind people. But what you're talking about when it comes to the water cooler moments or the meaningful conversations or that lack of pauses when you and your husband are just hanging out and talking about it, it's a different kind of barrier that's being removed in accessibility. Is there some other way we could sum that up? All those examples are so visual in the experience. What is the thing about audio description that makes those so notable? The water cooler, the lack of pauses, and the meaningful conversations.
I'm getting to experience the art of it. It's not, now I got to describe what's going on and I got to figure it out at the same time. Or when somebody says, oh my gosh, did you notice what that fire did or whatever on the episode? It's not, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that was what was going on during this extremely long musical what is it called? Not monologue, montage? There we
There we
go.
go.
There's the
Nice.
right word.
We got it.
Montage. I don't have to just be guessing because back in the day, which really, when you really think about it, wasn't that long ago. It's only been 10 years since streamers have been doing audio description natively. Back before that, though, there were so many shows that I didn't watch because I didn't have access to the information. And it's so different now. We think about, for example, watching maybe a sitcom from the 90s where the comedy's pretty spoken, and if it's visual, you can infer what's going on and things like that. But now shows are full-on theatrical performances. It's so many different layers, and there's so much visual things going on that there could be a whole, 3-4 minute sequence with no dialogue. I don't know what's going on without the audio description, and it goes along with the evolution of how shows are produced and done now.
Well, let's talk about that evolution because you've had quite a hand of it. But let's talk about that evolution because you've had quite a hand in it over the last few years, and specifically getting into AD as not just an audience member, but also a professional. So let's talk a little bit about your experience there.
Everyone always asks me how I got into audio description. Always. That's the first question when I share on my socials. Oh, I'm working on a project. And Roy, I'm going to make you blush. Good thing it's not a video podcast.
Oh, for God's sakes.
But everyone always asks me, how did you get into it? And the reality is I met Roy through a blind abilities podcast that Jeff Thompson was doing. Gosh, it must have been right before COVID. Literally, a couple days before or something. I don't know. And we just connected and just we're chatting a lot. And one day, just randomly during COVID, I was sitting on my front porch. I remember it vividly. I was like, I'd really like to do more audio description stuff and quality control. And Roy happened, I don't know if you remember, but you happened to have a documentary you were working on doing the production for it. And I think it was that same day we did a live QC together. It was literally that afternoon, later on. And from there, then I started reaching out to different audio description production companies and started learning the ropes. I read some books. I talked to different people that are in the industry, and I guess the rest is history. I'm doing some work now for some companies that I really enjoy being part of the team, and I feel super valued, and it's been really fun.
When you talk about learning the ropes and the books that you've read and the connections that you made, I'm wondering about what I'll call the soft skills. Like in your other work that you do, you're working in employment and labor, and there's an aspect of the skills beyond just here's my resume and I'm going to do an interview and then I'm going to get hired. There's other things that happen even after you get hired in the work that happens. So as far as soft skills go, can you give us maybe a brief overview of what the work as a quality control person does in your experience when it comes to film and TV AD?
Yeah, so for soft skills related to audio description quality control, first of all, you have to be a really good communicator. That can be verbally or in writing, but when you're reviewing scripts or providing feedback to writers or narrators or even the sound mixer or engineer, you have to be able to succinctly communicate why maybe a cue's off a little bit or the wording that they choose isn't working. I'll give an example. There's been some scripts where there's a word I come across and I don't know every word there is in the English language by far, but there's some words where if I have to go Google the word, I'm sure somebody else will get distracted by what that word is.
Mm.
So being able to, in a really succinct and professional way, communicate, oh my gosh, I have no clue what this word is. Is there maybe an alternative? And then maybe even suggest some alternatives so that it's a little bit easier to make that adjustment is a big deal. You have to be able to multitask. So there are times that quality control is done in different ways. I've done live quality controls before where there's a whole team on maybe a Zoom call and the video's playing, and then we have someone reading the script, and then there's pauses that we have to do to maybe discuss, okay, this is what was said, but this is what I imagined. How can we change that? And that takes a lot of concentration. It's not just sitting and watching. There's other times when I get an audio track that has voice on it already, and then the script, and we're going through to check independently if what was written was what was recorded first and foremost, if what was written is clear and follows general audio description principles, but then also follows the style guide for the different companies. Like every streaming company, not every, but most of the big ones have style guides and certain things that have to be flagged in the script, certain just words and brand names that they don't want in the audio description. We'll talk about that in a whole nother podcast. But they're the customer, so you have to follow the style guides that they ask. And then by all really equally as important as you have to have a good use of your technology and your sister technology. Roy can attest to this. In the entertainment system, entertainment field, I guess is really more the right word. There's some pretty wonky systems that we have to access to keep these titles secure. And if you don't have a good ability to use your own assistive technology and kind of troubleshoot what's going on and work with the team to get access to the info that you need, it's going to be really frustrating. Not all of the systems are created equal, and they're a little bit sometimes wonky to access with your screen reader, but it's because at times you're working on some really high profile titles and you don't want to be the reason that something leaks out prematurely or anything like that.
This whole not sitting and watching, you've given such specific examples and also some things that vary within the examples. There really is no one size fits all. And I'm curious about that subjectivity, that you are providing a service of quality control, but it's not checking a box of all these actual things for every single show, that each show has its own life, its own message that it's trying to communicate. And I'm curious about that subjectivity when it comes to a show that, if you want to name a specific example or not, but what is the thing that makes you make those decisions for the feedback? You said succinctly and making sure that you're meeting the task. What kind of subjectivity comes into play?
One thing I look at is what audience is going to be consuming the show primarily. And I'll give an example, probably not with specific titles because I never know when stuff releases anymore. But for example, if I'm quality controlling a show that I know is an American show that is produced in the United States, I'm going to make sure that the words being used are words that are typically found in the American like English language, as opposed to maybe like British or Australian. So as an example, in the US, we say, I get on the elevator. Well, in England, they say we get on the lift. That means two completely different things now to the two different audiences. So I catch those things because we do have writers from all over the world, and it's natural to fall into the terms that you use day to day. And the same thing goes for if I am QCing a British show and they say, gosh, I can't even think of other than the lift and the elevator, but there's just different terms that they use for different things. I have to make sure that I don't over quality control that, because the context of that show is that this is a British show. It should have the audio description that matches that type of a show. Another piece that has come up in our audio description discussion Facebook group is how much either language-wise is used. I've quality controlled some very raunchy shows, and the quality control or the audio description should match the raunchiness. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Like, we don't need to be prim and proper if this is a dirty, raunchy scene. That's how it's gonna go. And there's sometimes where there are cuss words in the audio description, and I'm not gonna edit that out if that's what the style of that show is.
Great examples. And that context really does drive the subjectivity. And I love that. Whether it's international audience or local to us in the US, the terms, really great answers. Let's pivot to high profile titles. Let's talk
I
about
know, I'm so excited.
let's talk about it. The Last of Us 2 premiered recently, season 2. And one of the unique things about this show is that your name is actually credited in the audio description track as Serena Gilbert, Quality Control Services.
Sure is. It's a really cool moment, but it wasn't just me. Like, Roy's never gonna say this. I'm gonna make him blush again. I really wish this was a video podcast, so Roy could add audio
Jeez.
description to.
I'm not
Well,
even going to
just
give my AD because I am resisting. Pretend like I'm a
No,
brand.
no, nope. You are totally blushing. But Roy was huge in advocating for this, and when he let me know about what was being considered, I was through the roof because this is a huge title. It's a really cool opportunity, and I think it's about time, to be honest. There's a lot that goes into producing audio description, and a lot of people don't realize it. Like, with Roy being the narrator on this title, he's not the one that wrote this script. A lot of people think the person voicing the script also wrote it. In actuality, I would prefer that it's not the same person writing that is voicing, because there's a lot of mistakes that can happen in that if you wrote it too. But Roy was pivotal in advocating for this, and I'm super thankful for Point 360 and Shane Weathers, who wrote this script, and out the whole Point 360 team. You guys are just the coolest to work with, and I just really appreciate you all. And of course, HBO for like being open to this and proudly displaying this. And as a side note, I'm not sure if our audience realizes this, but The Last of Us also has picture-in-picture with ASL, which is huge. I think I can only think of one other title that did that before, and I can't remember what the title was, but I know it's been done before, but it's not common by any means. So lots of kudos here.
Yeah, all that accessibility. And specifically about the credits on the AD side, one of the things that I've been focused on for the last few years is the ADNA.org, the Audio Description Network Alliance. And that is the database of professionals in film and TV entertainment that work in audio description. And the whole idea, I think you really said it well, is that we want our audiences as well as others to distinguish the many roles that are put in, the many departments that are involved in audio description. The person that's writing and also performing the audio description. That could be an auteur, or it could be someone who doesn't know what they're doing, and it just goes down the way we don't want to. But by distinguishing quality control, and one of the things that feels like such a victory is obviously you and your skills being celebrated. That is first and foremost. Here's a professional blind person who's being credited for a show that she's put in a lot of work on. But it's also recognizing that this is hopefully not going to be the only example, that this is setting a stage for others to follow suit, that quality control becomes a part of the process. And I know so many companies that are using quality control services. You're working on some of them, and that as other companies follow suit, this is going to bring better quality to the audio description audiences. So one of the things I'd love to know, Serena, is we're celebrating this pretty vocally and pretty blatantly about your involvement in being credited for audio description quality control. Why does that matter in the big picture of audio description for film and TV?
I'm just going to be real blunt and honest here, y'all. So I'm sorry if it offends people, but yes, quality control is happening to varying levels. And I'll give some examples. Sometimes some companies are doing quality control. However, it's being done by individuals who are not blind or utilize audio description. I'll just put it like that. And then there's other companies that aren't doing it at all, and it shows. I'm just going to say it definitely shows that it's not happening. And the fact that this was credited on such a big platform I think it empowers the blind and low vision audiences to stand up and say, "Hey, I noticed this track was not on par with what we've normally been getting or what we have grown to expect. Was quality control done on this? Cool, but was it done by a blind person? What was the process for this?" And to demand and almost expect that's the standard now. That's the gold standard. That's what's going to be recognized more, especially on such a prestigious company like HBO. They're literally called prestige TV. People want to be like HBO, like other networks. I'm just putting it out there. Nobody does prestige TV like HBO, and that is a huge example setting moment.
And going back to what we had said earlier about the subjectivity, you had used the word context in the sense of keeping the audience in mind. That is what you're bringing. That is a perspective that can be, frankly, overlooked sometimes.
Well, and especially for a show like The Last of Us, it is a highly visual show. Roy, gosh, I think one of them had 400 and something cues, especially when it just came on Sunday. I don't even know how many cues there were, but I think there were a lot. And to describe what's going on in a post-apocalyptic, I can't say that word, show that, has never been, like, these aren't things that people see or have had exposure to, if you think about it. I call it the mustardy growth because that's how it's described in the title intro and things like that. Or the clickers, which I learned from the vignette that came on after that. And you might have already known this. Are they called bloaters? That really big one?
The big ones are bloaters. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. That's just something that I'm going to file away for future things because that's another thing where the context matters. We should know, like, we don't just call the clickers the zombies or whatever, like they're clickers or they're the infected. There's context that is really important to make sure is in there so that people who watch the show and are big fans don't feel like the audio description is disconnected from what the true experience and the true intent of the title is.
You are not just sitting there and watching it, are you?
No, it's really funny because my husband thought that I wouldn't want to watch them as they came on because I had quote unquote already seen them. And I told him I obviously I'm following what's going on but I'm watching it for different things. And I love the work I do, but it's not like this, let me grab a bowl of popcorn and just enjoy this title. It is just such a different critical view that you're doing with it. And for this title, I didn't have Roy's voice on it when I QC'd. So it's a whole different level of making sure that things are where they need to be and going through it with the script and the video, but not already having the narration on there. So it's a whole different mind game. And it's really rewarding to then get to watch it with Roy's voice on it, especially episode 2 that aired this past weekend. It was just, I loved it. I was like, oh, I remember watching this with my screen reader reading the lines, and it's so much better with Roy. And by the way, there were some compliments on my feed for how beautiful the audio description was for that particular episode. So shout out to Shane and Roy for that performance too.
Wonderful. It's so great working with a great script and knowing that it's in good hands, both with you and with Shane. And you bring up a good point when it comes to the voice that you were listening to on the screen reader versus your experience hearing my voice. And what I do try to do is, as nauseously, exhaustingly consistent I am about talking about this, is how we bring the words to life and that nuance of the performance of audio description. I wrote a book on it, so it's very near and dear to my heart. What was your experience having the script screen read and then experiencing it with a voice? What was the difference in the performance versus what you heard in the screen reader? Could you sum it up?
There's some kind of aspects here that have to do with the quality control and being a blind QC specialist that make it where you accidentally spoil moments when you're doing the QC. And what I mean is you're going through the lines and you can take audio cues as to what, okay, he goes and opens the door. Okay, that's where I'm at here. But in long sequences, you just have to go with the flow. And sometimes you spoil things a little bit before. And then obviously there's no emotion in that voice, like at all. And you're just trying to make sure things are timed well and things like that. But then when you're watching it with a narrator voice or voice actor performing that, there's emotion behind it, especially in what will probably now be just a historical scene. I knew what happened, but it just felt completely different when I got to hear the actual fully mixed and performed track and things like that. It's pretty cool. Another piece that was really cool is, I believe, and somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, but from when I watched it, I believe that the 5.1 surround sound was retained in the mix with this, which sometimes does not happen with audio description shows. We've gotten away from the audio descriptions coming from the left and the shows coming from the right. I haven't seen that nearly as much, even on live audio description lately. But what usually happens is it's all coming through, the same stuff's coming through on every channel. And I've started to notice that more, the mixing and the sound engineering, the audio descriptions being centralized and allowing the 5.1 surround sound of the show to be preserved, which is a big deal in a show like this.
Lovely. I love that we're talking about the mix too, that
Yeah,
all of these
it makes
elements.
a difference because there's some loud scenes in this type of a show, and there's nothing worse than having the audio description either blaring where it's like your whole house can hear the narrator, or during the loud scenes, you can't really hear what's going on. Like, it needs to be blended just perfectly, like it wasn't an afterthought.
Yeah, really well said. Is there anything else that we haven't covered yet that we could talk about in this particular episode? I know we're going to talk about branding another time, but for what we're talking about here on the quality control side.
I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. I really wanted to talk about how collaborative the QC process was. And Roy, I'm going to turn it on you too. I'd love to hear what it was recording after knowing that this was QC'd and the team and things like that. But as I was working on the episodes, especially the very first one, and this is typical when you're QCing a show, it takes a little while to the writer and the whole team to get into kind of that sweet spot where they know the things I'm going to flag so they don't keep coming up, because I'm very anal about stuff.
And consistent.
And I'm consistently anal, but like the first episode is usually, or if they were done in pairs, because usually a writer will do a couple episodes at a time. But the first episode or two is usually the ones where I send back the most notes. And I was just met with a lot of collaboration of, Roy will laugh at this. You might have noticed in the first episode, we said innards a couple times. That was originally a different word. And I can't remember what it was because it was like an old school word that means that, but I don't think it's common knowledge. And we didn't want to use a word that was like their insides, or we wanted to match the mood. And that we literally had emails going back and forth of, how do we describe this? Serena, what works for you? Oh, that works for me, or maybe not. It was just such a collaborative process, and it was just really cool to feel like I was like right there with the team. And one day I want to go to a recording session and just watch it get recorded. We'll see. But it was just really cool. That's all I can say, especially on such a high profile title. But I am curious with you, Roy, what was that like? Actually, I'm going to word this question. We'll see how it comes out. What's it like recording a script that was very clearly QC'd versus one that wasn't? Like, can you tell as the performer? And then how does that impact the work that's done during that recording session?
Great question. Let's go back to what you said earlier about watching AD with your husband, that you don't have those pauses of having to like stumble through and explain, and like speed bumps on the freeway of the story.
Yep.
The collaboration that I experience is between the director and the engineer. In this particular show, I am recording in a studio at their location. So there's other people that are involved, and I do have the benefit of having what's happening on screen with me so I can understand the context of what's happening. And that's essential. So what happens in my experience, particularly for this show, is that those stumbling blocks of, wait, does this make sense, or this doesn't sound right, or there's something, and they have to stop and rewrite, and then they're checking with, all those things can get in the way of the performance and slow everything down. And so the work that I've experienced on these scripts is knowing that we're in good hands. And it's been so good to recognize and feel your work. I can't necessarily pinpoint, oh, this is Serena's touch, because the writing is really good. But I can definitely tell that there's something that's happening in the script where it just flows. And that collaboration that I'm experiencing between the engineer and the director, it goes really fast. And we're able to go through a show that has those hundreds of cues and be able to make sure that I'm staying in the moment of what I need to deliver. And I'm not being stuck by all the technical glitches that you and the team have already resolved. through the edit, through the quality control. So it's definitely noticeable, but I can't, in the same way that I'm hopeful that when I'm performing audio description, people aren't thinking about me. They're thinking about the story. They're thinking about the characters and what's happening to them. I'm wondering, in my experience, no, I'm not wondering. I know in my experience, a similar thing is happening where I feel I'm in good hands because we're not stopping repetitively over things that could have been picked up by a QC person because you've already picked those up. So you're invisible in a way that shows that you've been there. Like you've Marie Kondoed the AD script.
Is it Spark Joy?
Oh, Serena Sparks Joy AD.com. It's, and I think there is some really strong analogies there that it is, we've been saying this for so long. A picture is worth 1,000 words. There's 24 frames per second of film and TV. That's 24,000 words to choose from to describe just 1 second of film or TV. It is Marie Kondo. It is tidying up. It is making sure that the actual message that's happening. And I think that you are Marie Kondo.
I love that. Did that just come to you?
It just came to me.
That makes me smile. That's so funny because okay, so another insider thing to Roy and I's random conversations. Like, I will call Roy while I'm like packing for a trip or something, and then he'll tell me, "Oh, did you know you could fold your pants like this, and then it won't come unfolded, and they won't be wrinkled?" Like, we've had whole conversations. He still has not taught me how to fold a fitted sheet yet, though.
Oh, that will happen. We should do our own episode on that. I'm wondering, yeah, I think I could do AD for that for sure.
I'm
I'd
like,
have to do it
I
while
just
I do
follow
it
it up.
though.
Step
Yeah.
1, roll it up in a ball. Step 2,
You're
throw it in
probably
there.
saving 20 seconds a week by doing that. That's like a huge, that adds up.
I hate folding sheets.
Yeah. When I learned about the jean roll, I was like, you have blown my mind.
That's how you're able to take a whole cross-country trip with just a backpack. Yes.
Bingo.
Yeah, I could never. I'm a girl. I'm high maintenance. I'm so high maintenance. If you would have brought an actual suitcase when you visited in Denver, you would have had more clothes.
Oh,
And
see,
just
at least we
saying.
got a video together. We were in
Yes.
person. We did a video together.
We did.
And that is the first of many victories in person.
Yes.
Nicely said. Anything else? Oh, how can we follow you?
So I am most active on my Blindy Girl Facebook page. So it's BLINDYGIRL. Apparently I can't spell. Let's try that again. You can leave that in because I think it's hilarious.
Sure.
BLINDYGIRL. On Instagram, it's at Blindy Girl Official. Because for some reason, somebody had Blindy Girl. So whatever. And it's not me. So Blindy Girl Official is there on Instagram and Threads. And then Blue Sky, it's just Blindy Girl, I believe. I just started that Blue Sky. So I'm trying to figure it out because it's a whole new thing to me.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you're welcome to follow me there. Roy and Dane and I also moderate the audio description discussion group. So I do post there frequently as well as myself.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us.
I had so much fun. Thank you. Who's us? Like, Roy, yeah. You just told me, thanks so much for joining us. I give you a hard time.
Of course.
All the time.
So like in the context of us, it's the audience. I'm including the audience and thanks for joining us because you've given such a wealth of information that they're also appreciative and they're very thankful. So I'm speaking on behalf of them.
Of course.
How's that for a quick recovery?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think you still stumbled a little bit.
I always stumble.